Hello guys and gals, little bit of a different one today. I'm making a video response to a comment on Alex Rome's last video, 3 satisfying sound design techniques. And on it, this person, Mayon, wrote, anyone know where I can get that amazing classic electric piano sound? And my initial thought when I saw this was, I don't remember any electric pianos in this video. So I asked for the timestamp and they pointed me to this piece of music at 43 seconds. Which I'm sure you agree is a rather beautiful chord progression and production, but no electric piano. Unfortunately, what Alex had done, he must have composed this using an electric piano patch and then swapped to the synthesizer we're hearing. But not only that, the MIDI part shown was not what was playing back. So if you tried to copy what was on screen, you wouldn't have got the same results anyway. Now, that wasn't actually the point of Alex's video, so he's not to blame for anything there, but I don't blame Mayon for being confused. Anyway, I did reply in the comments. It's not an electric piano, it's actually a synth, and it's quite easy to make. But then, upon trying to explain that in text form in a YouTube comment, it became quickly apparent that it was going to be much easier to show rather than tell. Mayon did also explain he is a beginner at both music production and music theory, so I said, okay, let's make a video. And here we are. We're going to go over the sound design, and then I'll do a second video on the chord theory behind this progression. So the first thing I need to point out is that this production you're hearing is actually made of 3 parts. There's a synth pad here. Then there is an ARP. ARP is an abbreviation of arpeggio. We'll come to those later. Lastly, there is a sub bass, which sounds like this. Basically providing the rest of the chord and the musical foundation, as well as the sonic foundation. I'll leave a link in the description to the MIDI parts so you can follow along with this next bit. Okay, let's start with the synth pad. I'm going to start with this synth. It's called Vital by Mac Title. It's a free synthesizer. In fact, everything I'm going to be using apart from my DAW is free, so this could be done in any DAW. But the principles are all quite universal, so use whatever you're most comfortable with. It should be applicable. Like most synthesizers, when you first launch them, it defaults to a simple sawtooth wave, and that's a perfect start for us. First, we're going to take our main volume envelope here, and we're going to reduce sustain so the note slowly fades over time, and the speed of that fade is governed by the decay. Till we get something like that. And what we're going to do next is apply a low-pass filter. Again, this should be the default mode for the filter in your synth. It's called a low-pass filter because it lets the low frequencies pass. Now, filters have 3 main elements. The cutoff frequency, simply meaning at what frequency everything is cut off. And resonance, and this is basically how resonant a peak you get at the cutoff frequency. This will sound much more obvious if I move it around like this. And the last is the filter mode itself. I've explained low pass already. Obviously there is a high pass and other modes. But right now we just want a steep low pass filter. This number here is the steepness. So I'm going to pick the bigger one, 24. That means 24 decibels per octave, which simply means for every octave up in pitch after the cutoff frequency we've chosen, the sound is reduced by 24 decibels. How steep the slope is, basically. Next, we need to apply an envelope to this filter, which gives it motion. So I'm going to make a little triangle shape here on my envelope. We do that by turning the sustain down, and we'll adjust decay by ear in a minute, and then apply it to our filter. As you can hear, that's added some attack to the sound, opening up the higher frequencies just for the beginning. Now, if we dial back a little bit the amount the envelope is affecting the filter, so it's not so sharp, and also slow down the attack of the envelope a little bit, so you get a little whoa at the beginning. Now we just play with the decay a little bit, so it doesn't hang around for too long, but isn't too short either. Now, believe it or not, that is actually most of the sound done. The rest comes from ambient effects. The first of which is a chorus. Now you can use any chorus you like, really. There's likely one built into your synth. But while I'm recommending good free plugins, Valhalla's Space Modulator should certainly be one in your collection. In my opinion, one of the best modulation plugins available, free or paid. I'm just going to select a chorus preset. Let's keep the mix at about 40%. The next ingredient is a delay, or echo, if you will. Again, any delay effect will probably do the job, as long as it can do what's called dotted rhythms. We'll come to that in a second. But one of my favourites here is Variety of Sounds Nasty DLA. Emulates the warm echoes of tape modules very, very well. So the repeat timing I have set here is 1 dotted eighth. The dotted bit means basically a half on top. So it's an eighth and a half. So it's not 1/16th, it's not 1/8, it's an eighth and a half. They call it dotted eighth. It's a classical term. It might even be labelled 3/16ths. But you should see it on your delay. Most delays are capable of this. I'm going to turn up the feedback to get us more repeats. I'm going to remove most of the high frequencies to keep it nice and mellow. And then just adjust our echo overall volume, i.e. the wet signal. And lastly, we're going to use a reverb. And we need a reverb that's capable of very long, smooth tails. And my absolute favourite for this is Dragonfly, the Hall algorithm. Again, another free plugin. I'm going to select large halls, great hall, and just turn up the late reflections level, i.e. the tail. Beautiful. So that's our pad sound. Moving on to the ARP, this one's actually quite simple. I'm actually going to use the same MIDI as the pad. And let's load our synth here. But this time we don't want a sawtooth, we want a simple sine wave. And we're just going to make a fairly short volume envelope. And we're going to place it 1 octave up. Now here's the arpeggiator bit. I'm going to place an arpeggiator on this track. Now, this will be different in your DAW of choice, but I assure you every DAW I've ever used has an arpeggiator. An arpeggiator basically just cycles through the held notes at a given speed and direction. And I want 16th notes here. I'm going to keep the note length to half. And the pattern I'm going to choose is down. And now we simply put this through the same effects as our pad. Chorus, delay, reverb. And there's our ARP. Last but not least, the bass. Also fairly simple. We're just going for what would be called a subtone here. And we achieve that with just a couple of sine waves. Here's our first one. And one more. And the second one is going to go up an octave. And then we're simply just going to add a little bit of unison to the top octave, which is a little bit like chorus. It's a form of detune, but it's done by adding more oscillators in unison that are slightly out of tune. I'm just going to tighten up the tuning a touch and dial back the volume of that oscillator so it's not too obvious. Again, we're going for mellow. And there we have it. Close enough for jazz, as they say. So I hope this helped you out. In the next video, we'll go over the theory of the chord progression, as that's got lots of interesting elements I'd like to talk about also. But I think this video is a little long already, so we'll make that a part 2. As always, leave me a like if you liked it, maybe a sub if you loved it, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, bye bye.